Came back as a goat man because he was a goat farmer, and then killed all the people that lynched him and his people, and then came back and terrorized Fort Worth ever since.
That's a real story.
It's a real story. Look up Fort Worth Goat Man. The Goat Man?
Yes.
Nighttime?
Yes.
So we should camp
You
here.
heard it here first, folks. The Goat Man comes at night.
Goat Man?
The Goat Man.
He only appears at night.
Y'all see the Goat Man?
The goat man?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for him.
11 to midnight is usually when he comes out.
Hold on.
Follow us. We're actually headed kind of close to there.
Okay. What's up? Welcome back to another Cameron Walks video. I know I've said this in the past, but I'll say it now. This video is not going to be the same as my other ones, and that's just going to be with everything because this is a lifestyle channel and it's about my life and what I do. This week, I'm taking my two little brothers, Leighton and Kyler, with me, and my buddy Edric and my fiance Mia to search for the Goat Man of Fort Worth. If you haven't heard of him, I'll leave some links in the description so you can get up to speed. And that's okay because I hadn't heard of him until this year either. But yeah, let's jump into it and let's go search for the Goat Man.
Guys, today we will be going to the Goat Man Bridge.
I don't know, either way it's pretty.
Yeah, but first we will be going hiking.
Okay.
Actually,
In the Goat Man Forest.
oh yeah, guys, we'll be going hiking, guys. Yep. Bye bye.
So the Goat Man, he was a man from the Denton, Texas area. Before segregation really began a long time ago, there was like an all-black community. After the slaves were freed, the blacks went to this one community and kind of had the community going. And this one dude, he was a goat farmer, and his business was booming, and he had signs all around town. Well, then segregation started back up again. Whenever I don't remember when that was, maybe like the 1900s or 1800s, I don't even know. But segregation started up again, and these white people saw how good this business was doing and saw his signs everywhere and were like, what the hell? And so they went to the city and burned down the black community that was there and then lynched a bunch of them in the streets. So apparently the dude who had the goat business was doing so good at it that he came back as a goat. And the rest is history. He has the Goat Bridge, whereas apparently it's a portal to hell from the people that were burned down. It's a portal to send the people to hell who.
This is a Goat Man right here. Probably can't see it.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, except that's too white. He was black. Size 10, but I wear 9.5 because they weren't a half foot either. You gotta get. Hey, listen, it's the Goat Man. Come closer. You don't hear it?
Yeah, I heard that.
I don't believe in that.
Dude, it's the Goat Man.
That's literally like cities away.
We should have brought Blicky.
You know he came here.
We should have brought a stick.
All right, hold on. I gotta interview this kid right here. So, what do you think about the Goat Man? Do you think he's real?
Fake.
Why?
Cause
Do
I
you
already
know
saw
the
a
story of the Goat
documentary.
Man? You saw a documentary? What happened?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Well, then why?
I just remember it
How
was
can you
fake.
say it's fake?
Cause
Dude, do you know the story of the Goat Man still?
no.
He was a black man. He was a goat farmer. They came in, killed him because he was a goat farmer, was doing so good. They lynched him in the streets. And he came back as a goat man, opened a portal to hell on the bridge in Denton, the Goat Man's Bridge, and then he came here and wrecked his car here in Marion Sampson Park.
So spooky.
Well, you'll see the car down here.
It
I
is
swear.
down there. Wait,
Yeah.
it's on the other side.
Yeah, but we're gonna get around that side from this. What about you, Kyler? Do you believe in the Goat Man?
Not really, no.
All right. Well, we brought our own actual spiritist with us today. He can feel spirits, right? Isn't that the case?
Mhm.
How does it feel being? This is a microphone. How does it feel being a spiritist?
Like it feels like you get chills when spirits are around you.
Do you like it or do you not like it?
No.
You don't like it? Okay. So, what's your what you're saying is if the goat man was to start, you know, making you feel that he was here, you would let us know so we could protect you, right? But it'd be proof that the goat man's here. So we got our own spiritist with us, and we're gonna go into the goat man's forest right here.
Somewhere
Right here. Yeah. And go down and find the goat man, interview a couple bystanders.
Yeah.
Standers.
There's already screaming going on.
We think it's either the goat man or one of his victims.
Be careful out there.
Wait.
Come along with us.
Crazy.
Where?
Sees the goat man.
Alright, so we're here now.
Which part?
Oh, he's gone.
Oh, dude. You saw him though?
You think you're scaring me?
No. I just think the goat man's real.
My ankle's kind of hurting.
Oh, well, you shouldn't have worn Crocs, so put it in sport mode. We're about to be on the rocks.
My crutch is kind of tight, so I'm gonna take it off in a bit.
Dude, you wore the dumbest shoes to wear today. I'm gonna be honest.
You're welcome.
You're gonna have to keep up and hike. Good luck. We're going up a mountain.
Nah, you'll be fine.
So, go ahead.
The goat man's around. We just got a clue.
We were talking to that guy up there, and we asked, have you heard of the goat man? He said, I have. I said, where is he? He said, that way, which pointed us right here. He didn't give us much more direction than that, but we think, me and Edric were kind of talking amongst ourselves, we think that he didn't want to say too much because he actually does know about the goat man, so
Yeah, so we just gotta find which directions he's at.
we're going to go down from here.
Let's go find him.
Come on, ladies.
With very few leads, we were still determined. We walked into the forest of the unknown for the goat man.
So if you listen closely, you can hear water coming from that way, and I think that could be the source of the goat man's drinking water. We're gonna go definitely check that out. Maybe we could spot him around there, or see some people who might have seen him. Edric, what you think?
He might be thirsty right now, so
It
let's
is.
go check it out.
It's very sunny, very hot.
There's a pond down here.
Oh, we're going to check it. It's the goat man.
Cinnamon.
Me too.
Here's so much fun.
The goat man's cooking.
Cinnamon rolls.
Alright, so this is Goat Man's Paradise. Look where he lives. Pretty nice. It's not bad.
A lot of people who are mistaken thinking he's living at that dingy old bridge. Why would he be there when he could be here?
Exactly.
This is beautiful.
I don't know if I believe in it or if I don't. Because people have died out of drink.
Then he's probably real. Look at that. That's a deep hoof. That's a deep hoof. Hoof.
That looks like a hoof, though.
That's a hoof.
That's a
I
hoof.
just saw some stuff.
Yeah. Tampon.
Oh, there's ducks.
Look at these
Ow.
little ducks.
That hurt.
Let's interview the ducks. They might speak goat.
Hey, ducks.
Ducks, have y'all ever heard of the man called Goat Man?
Hey, ducks.
If he falls, I'm gonna laugh.
Have you heard of the goat man?
I don't think he has.
They're pretty cute.
Oh, yeah, he said yes. Have you heard of the Goat Man?
I guess that's a no.
Separated by waters and many challenges, we still made our way through to search for the goat man. Nothing would stop us. No amount of water, no amount of sticks, no amount of obstacles. 3, 4 boys and a woman after the goat man.
Actually, what we need to start looking for is areas where a lot of greenery has been removed, where it's not as green, because you know goats like to eat greenery, so it'd be a probably cleared out area where he'd be.
Yeah.
I lived on a farm with goats for a year. I know.
But it's half goat, half human.
That's true, but I'm
So
sure it still
anything
has
you try to
goat
do
attributes.
to the McDonald's. This is railroad from the goat man back
From
then.
the Goat Man Bridge. It's probably a truss from the bridge, bro.
What did it say? It said goat lady.
Dude, yeah, S-N-E-P-K, Goat Man. Have you heard of the Goat Man? Have you heard of the Goat Man? Yeah. You have? Have you seen him? Oh. You've been in here for a couple days? Oh. Do you live in here? Oh. Dude, apparently there's a goat man around here. Huh?
Oh, at night.
He comes around more at night? The goat man does? The goat man? Nighttime? So we should camp
You heard it
here.
here first, folks. The goat man comes at night.
Have you ever camped here? Oh. By who? People around here? Who should I ask? Thanks, man. My name's Cameron. Bye.
So that was a great interaction. We
Found out some more information.
got some more evidence. So the goat man is real. It is in fact real. That guy just said it, and that's the second person we interviewed, and they said yes, we know him. So if you're from Fort Worth, and if you see the goat man, let us know. We're trying to hunt it down.
We need more people on the ground. Hey, have y'all heard of the goat man?
That urban legend guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard that bitch.
Well, all
you
right.
seen it?
So apparently, the bridge is in Denton. That's where the community was. But apparently, after he turned into the goat man, he drove a car over here and it wrecked. And then he's a new goat man here. But I mean, we were just thinking about this. Yeah, okay, maybe he's supposed to be in Denton. But when we came up over that ridge, we saw all the water flowing in there. It was all beautiful. And we were like, duh, who the hell would want to spend eternity at a dingy bridge in Denton when they could live in this paradise right here?
Are you gonna cross the river?
Yeah, right there.
You're gonna get wet.
I'm not gonna get in the river. I'm just looking for the goat man around the river.
Goat man?
Get on
The
top
goat
of the
man.
rocks.
He only appears at night.
Really? That's what he just said too.
That's like the third
He
person.
only appears at night. And whatever you do, do not get close to him.
Why?
Oh.
Have you heard of anyone that's gotten close to him?
Oh yeah, cause some dumbass got himself killed.
Who?
I don't know, some idiot.
Was it recently?
Dang.
Yeah, recently.
Like
And
this
the
year?
only, yeah, there was 2 guys who went up there and fought. They did saw goat man, but 2 of them together beat them up.
Wait, they beat the goat man up?
So
Where's he at? They
only
didn't tie him down?
they just beat him up like kind of like this, like that.
Come on like this. Like that.
He only appears at night.
Damn, he probably got
Like after
messed
7
up.
p.m. or 8? Or 9?
You gotta come at
Only at midnight.
11?
Midnight?
Come at 11 when all the potheads are over here. There's some over there.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
They probably
So
hang out
goat
there.
man,
huh?
you would say is probably attracted to the smell of the weed.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
think he's a stoner?
Definitely, man.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And
That's probably
after,
how he got beaten up.
Especially if you're out here.
You hear this?
when I grow up,
Definitely.
when I grow up, I'm gonna hunt every single one of the urban legends.
Yes.
One by one.
That's what's up, bro.
The first person I'm gonna get,
believe
the first urban legend I'm gonna get is Kappa.
Kappa?
Kappa?
What the hell is Kappa?
You don't know who Kappa is?
No.
Alright, very close attention. So Kappa is one of the Japanese urban legends.
In Japan?
He usually live in pond, lakes, rivers, but not the oceans. It said long ago that some kid got drowned from the Kappas. How did they do it? They grab their legs until they drown.
Jesus. So how are you gonna go about getting him?
Well, the only way you have to do it, you have to bow down to him. If they bow down, then the water, they have like this water on the head to keep them like more powerful.
Yeah.
But if they spill it, they will lose their powers.
And then you attack his ass right then?
Dead.
Hell yeah, bro. Well, I wish you the best of luck in your journeys, man. And I'm gonna be rooting you forward. Do you have a channel or anything you're gonna post this on, or you haven't created it yet?
I don't know.
Give him your Instagram.
I do have Instagram.
Do you have YouTube?
I do have YouTube.
Let me see
Yeah.
your Instagram. You got like 2,000 followers on Instagram.
Whenever you start, dude,
Alright, let me see.
I need to watch you destroy the Kappa.
Yeah,
And
bro.
then,
we
dude,
gotta
don't
see
forget
that's-
about Fort Worth. Come back and find the Goat Man after you get the Kappa.
At least, bro,
Okay, but
if we don't find it, you gotta find it.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna need y'all's help.
Okay, call me when you come back here to do it. After you destroy
And how am I
Kappa,
supposed to do that? And don't let these 2 kids get killed.
message him on Instagram.
Yeah,
He will get a
dude.
hold of me.
So yeah,
Hopefully we find him tonight.
but he only appears at midnight, alright?
Okay.
Alright, we'll come back.
Oh, and also, it's gonna be.
Was that the Goat Man?
Definitely.
Probably not.
It's daylight.
Yeah,
The Goat
apparently he
Man.
doesn't come out past night, so our efforts are kind of fruitless.
I told you
But-
earlier, bro.
But I gotta warn you, this guy, whew, he tough.
The Goat Man?
Yeah,
How strong is he?
I don't know, like super strong.
Should we carry a stick with us?
You think all 6 of us could get him? 1, 2,
Probably.
3, 4, 5.
Six. Make that
7,
7 because
7.
I'm taking my brother with me.
Hell yeah, dude. We need y'all.
We'll get him.
Are you gonna help him when he goes on his journeys?
Yeah, for sure.
That's what right brothers are about.
I'll be right there. We'll be on our.
Alright, man. Yeah, I got his Instagram. Hey, y'all take it easy.
Hey, y'all be safe.
Y'all be careful.
Watch out for the Goat Man.
And we will see him. We'll let you know
wait,
so we can beat him
we
up.
need a
Yeah, just
community call in case we're ever all out here. If you ever hear the Goat Man, let's just make a call right now, like something like, and then we'll know that we saw the
You
Goat
think that
Man.
works? Or should it
Would that be
something
good
different?
enough?
Yeah.
Try it.
Do I say it all the time?
The same one.
I can't do that shit.
Can you?
I can't do it either, man.
Oh shit, it's not
Yeah,
gonna
so
work.
be another one. You like
Alright,
that? Yeah.
Alright, bet. That'll be it.
Yeah.
Y'all be
All right.
safe.
If we see him, we'll let you know.
I'll hear it.
know
I'll
by
be
the
listening
call.
for the call. Dude, that's 2 people in a row that said it's at nighttime.
Told you, bro. It's alright. We're gonna have to come back.
I told y'all it was real.
No, I heard the Goat Man. Like, what's it called? That like, if you go on, like on his bridge that's over there, like
In
he's up
Denton?
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Denton. Then some people died because they got pulled off.
They grab their legs. Like the Kappa in Japan.
Yeah, I didn't know about the Kappa.
Me
That's
neither.
pretty cool.
Dude, we should do what he does. We should cancel everything and just
Yeah,
be
just-
urban legend hunters.
You think I don't
Our
believe
life
it just because
mission
I was
is to hunt
you
these
thought
people
that,
down. Hey, should we
it
go
He
ask
was
them?
joking.
Yeah, you
Who?
thought that was joking.
Are there stoners over there?
So he likes, he's a stoner. You know,
The Goat Man is apparently a stoner.
Maybe we gotta come back on 420. 1,000,000 likes and we'll come back. We gotta come.
Probably.
You driving the Goat Man's bridge?
Probably. Who knows?
We should come with him.
I'll let you guys know.
Okay, let us know.
Grab a weapon or something.
Yeah, just message Edric on Instagram.
Alright, I'll text you on Instagram. Don't worry about it.
I love him.
So you heard that we might go to Goatman's Bridge just because that guy, he's a legend, honestly. Legend killer. But he's a legend himself. Yeah, that guy's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. He's just like for it.
Yeah. I think he's serious.
He is too, actually. I thought he was joking at first. But I feel
Nah.
like he might be serious.
Honestly, it kind of seems like he was serious. His brother was kind of laughing, but he was like, "Yeah, this is what's up."
You seen the Goat Man?
There's something in there.
Inside of here? Is it big enough to be the Goat Man?
You're crazy.
I'm crazy?
Yeah.
It's fun though, right?
No, it's
Yeah, it is. No, you're not. Come this way, look. To the right, your left, I mean. Oh, look, a caterpillar. This is so worth it.
No, it's not. This is crazy.
Huh? What's up, Layton?
This ain't funny no more.
Oh, shut up.
Alright, bro, keep going.
Look at that. Mia helping him out.
Okay, it's easier up here.
Oh shit.
Oh my gosh, I cannot climb that.
You
What?
can.
This? This is easy, dude. Look. There's stairs right here.
Or do this.
Here.
Taking a break soon? Yeah, we're taking a break, bro.
Good job, baby. You too, Mia.
Things heard of the Goat Man? Let's go interview him.
There's a person down there?
Yeah.
Where?
It went that way.
Let's go find him. Come on, quick. Tyler, Layton? Do not get too far away from me.
I almost died.
Where?
Like when I was climbing it, my foot slipped like so much and I got water on the bottom.
Really?
Hey, kids!
Yes.
I love y'all, and I respect y'all's choice of wanting to explore, but stay close. This is the Goat Man's leash. This is the same kind of things we would walk the goats with on the farm.
Over yonder.
Over yonder in Mississippi. What's up, guys? Nothing much. Y'all see the Goat Man?
The Goat Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for him, bro.
Y'all heard
You know what
about
I'm
him?
saying? Yeah.
I heard he only comes at night. Okay, bro, thanks for the warning. Dude, he must have just seen the Goat Man.
Yeah.
I bet he saw the Goat Man.
But that dog was so cute.
It was. What's up, dude? Did you see the Goat Man?
What's that?
The Goat Man.
Goat Man?
You've heard of the Goat Man? No. What? Look up Fort Worth, Marion Sampson, Goat Man. All right.
That's all.
I don't think we will either, Kyler.
That's a good prediction, Kyler.
What?
Kyler said, I bet he won't.
He didn't seem to care.
No, he didn't even care.
It's a better view.
Let's take this view. Let's
But
look at this view,
hopefully
guys.
he did.
We'll be flabbergasted.
Because this is a serious matter. We wouldn't be doing all of this if it wasn't serious, right guys?
Yeah, we're trying to spread awareness.
Yes.
Man, look at this view. Oh. Oh, these butterflies. Oh. I've seen this type of rope on a lot of goats in my life.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's freshly cut. It's only been like about 2 hours.
Yeah.
He's around.
Hold up. Child Amber Alert. Child abduction in Waco, Texas.
Goat Man.
Goat Man.
Oh my gosh.
Look, look, look.
Yo, what is this?
Look, bro.
Whoa.
Goat Man.
Whoa. That's no joke right there. That's actually a fucking...
It looks like a trail over here.
Follow it.
Follow it.
Follow it.
Follow it.
It has different footsteps each time. I just realized, because look.
The shifter.
Wait, he might have like 8 legs because he might have different.
Look, you see that? It looks like a raccoon type. That's a hoof. That's another hoof. 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 That's not even as hard.
Yeah, it is. It's been so long.
Like
Here's more.
Look, they did Simpsons on it.
Oh, there's a second car.
Alright, here's the second car. We gotta check out both the things.
Alright, so this was the Goat Man's car.
What about that one? That could have been it.
It's this one.
Oh.
Yeah. This thing was built in 1937.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
rusted.
No seat belts. That's why it wrecked. But he escaped with just his goat legs, grew back his human body, and he roams this forest till the day that we die.
What if I put a rock in the car?
Unless we catch them. We can catch the Goat Man together as a team, yeah?
There's a green bag in there.
It's
Looks
probably
like,
got dog poop in it.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Maybe that's a goat man's poop.
He just throws it back in his car. I was checking on the car over there. It's a lot more put together than this car, and it's longer, and it had a very big cab, which makes me think that that could actually be the goat man's car, since a goat man would probably have a very big body, being half man, half goat.
But he wasn't a goat man after. He wasn't a goat man when
It says on there. It
Yes,
just
he
says
was.
stop.
He had goat legs. So he could still drive. But
It
he had
says
human
stop
arms.
right there.
From an animal.
Damn, that's crazy. Looks weird, huh?
I wonder what it is. I went with the stick.
Ooh. What? Devil worship?
No, just some like Hindu shit.
Oh, that's
Y'all
weird.
heard of the goat man?
Yeah, trust me. Yeah.
You have?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. But we've been out here looking for him today. Some people say he only comes out at night.
It's pretty much at night. Yeah.
You know too? Why do everyone know this goat man information?
Well, I mean, I grew up here.
Okay.
And I've come out here for goat man before. Are you
Really?
guys seriously hunting him?
Yeah.
You, trust me, come out towards 11.
11? That's what
11. Yeah, they said 11 to midnight earlier.
11 to midnight is usually when he comes out.
Hold on.
Follow us. We're actually headed kind of close to there.
Okay. Hey, boys, grab the stuff. Come on. Grab his backpack. Everything. Come on.
Grab my bag.
Grab everything. Insider footage. Insider information.
Are you guys from Texas or?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're from Fort Worth. I just never knew about the goat man until like 2 weeks ago.
Oh shit.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, no, it's stuff that wasn't out here.
So,
There's a couple of other locations too.
yeah, the goat man bridge in Denton, right?
Yes.
So how did he get from there to here?
I'm not sure on that part of the legend, to be honest, but I've been out. I used to come out here all the time, and there were definitely some points where I basically ended up booking it.
Really?
Really? That's crazy. So where'd you see him here?
Way down here.
By the cars?
Close to the car, but even further down.
Oh wow. I heard that that's how he got over here was from the car. Yeah.
I haven't heard that one. But basically, if you go all the way down this way, you're gonna come across that really, really steep hill where it is.
Uh-huh.
Bear off to the left and go down close towards the water.
Okay.
When you get to, it's gonna be like that little circle, that inlet right there.
Uh-huh.
There's gonna be like a bunch of like, what are those tail things called? Like they're really high up. Down in that area is where I've seen them.
Okay, and it's best to come at midnight.
Best to come at midnight.
So we should do
11
this
to
whenever we
midnight.
sleep, like all day, come here and stay all night.
Yeah. Don't park your cars though. River
You
Oaks
get-
is fucking insane with the cops.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, so I would park your
Get
cars.
someone to drop us off.
Yeah.
Uber.
All right. That's what we're gonna have to do.
Alright, thank
All
you.
right, thank
very
you.
much.
No, my name's Cameron. What was your name?
Meg,
Meg. Thanks, Meg.
nice to meet y'all.
Nice to meet you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate the
Good
information.
luck.
Appreciate it.
I would bring some stuff with you if you know what I mean.
Do you, oh, okay, yeah. Do you know if he's like attracted to anything in particular?
I know I had my dog with me.
Okay, so he eats dogs
So
or
bring-
something.
Bring a dog.
Bring a dog.
I was with another person. Don't split up though.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh yeah, this was useful information. Y'all hear
I
that?
thought it would be.
11 p.m. That's what a lot of people said.
Dude, that's the second person to say 11 p.m. and to 12 p.m. So it's definitely got to be in that that's the golden hour of Goatman sightings. We're gonna come out here. Shit, man, when are we gonna do this? It'll have to be in the future, huh?
Yeah.
Next time I'm in Texas, you'll get a part 2 to this video. Edric's channel, get a
Yeah.
part 2.
1 million likes.
A
And
million likes and I'll cancel everything. I'll drop everything and come back whenever it hits 1 million likes.
And we'll come back at 11 to 12 to go catch.
No, we'll stay the whole night.
24 hours in Goatman.
Tyler, you coming with us if we do 24 hours?
Sure.
All right. Dude. Yeah, but we're real.
We got the information we needed.
We need a dog. I feel like maybe Goatman wouldn't be so attracted to Louie because he's kind of a bigger dog. Maybe we need a smaller dog. Do you think y'all could bring Halo?
No.
No?
Absolutely not.
I'm just kidding.
Why not?
Edric, you got like 6 dogs to choose from. Bring the smallest one.
No, that's not happening. Alright, we buy a dog.
We buy a dog just to feed to the goat man. Dude, there's so many stray dogs in Dallas and stuff. We could just go grab one.
Right.
We can name the dog Goatman.
Yeah, Goatman Jr.
So we've interviewed probably like 4 people now. 2 of them said come at like 11 to midnight, so it's pretty cool. After today, definitely, like, it's real. You see the evidence, you know what I'm saying? Like,
If there was any doubt in my mind or anyone's mind today before we came here, I think there was a little bit of doubt. I'll go ahead and admit it. I had some doubt. But after interviewing these people, seeing everyone, hearing their stories, hearing the passion that some of these people had, and the stories that they had, true, like, self-encountered stories that they shared where they brought their dog out here and the goat man made her have to book it and leave.
just like Meg.
Exactly, like Meg. That's kind of who I was alluding to there.
The only person.
Dude, a story like that will grab you and take you from a halfway believer or a non-believer and shift you over here to the Goatman believer side. And that's exactly where I'm standing, and that's where I'll stand on until I die at this point. And
that's pretty brave.
when we come back out here, we're gonna stay the night. We're gonna try to catch the Goatman the best we can. If this video hits 1 million likes, we will drop everything we do.
We'll come back with sticks.
Both kinds.
Yeah, both
Yeah.
kinds.
You heard Meg, she said make sure you bring something to protect you, if you know what I mean.
So
I know what she meant.
every person we talked to
We're in
seemed pretty
Texas.
genuine, like they're definitely telling the truth in what they're saying.
Come here, Kyla.
And yeah, there's only one person that didn't know who the goat man was, which was crazy. See, now we got the believers.
What do you think now after talking to all these people?
I think that Goatman is real. And yeah, we'll come back.
You?
Huh?
What do you think after talking to people like Meg just now? Do you think that the Goatman's possibly real, or are you still on the fence?
Yep.
100%? Or like?
100.
Okay. You heard it from him. Yep, 100. That's what he said.
100.
Yep, 100.
So yeah, we'll come back some other time and definitely catch it.
If we catch anyone else to interview along the way, you'll see that. But this will probably be in the outro, so we'll pretend that we saw them before. So.
Well, hit us up if you see the goat man in Marion Sansom. Is that what it's called?
Or at the Goatman Bridge in Denton.
Or the Goat Man Bridge. Or anywhere else in Texas.
Bet.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of here.
Alright.
Later.
Well, it
Edric.
was fun. Let's go get some food.
How are you doing? Good. I have a question. Have you heard of the Goatman?
No.
Really? Alright, well, never mind. Look up Fort Worth, Texas, Marion Sampson, Goatman.
Oh,
It's an
okay.
urban legend. A lot of people have heard about it.
All right, I'll check it out.
For sure. Have a good one. Careful. Be careful, yeah. Hi. I got a question. Have you heard of the Goatman? The Goatman legend? Goatman, yeah. What? He's like around here. He lives in here apparently. We just met some other people who said they met him. He comes out at night normally though.
A Goatman legend?
A Goatman legend. He's from Denton, so it was like a group of people, and he was like the goat farmer or whatever. And it was in the 1800s. He was black, and he was selling good, like doing good and selling good business. Well, the white people back then were mad and like tore down all his signs and then lynched him in the streets. He came back as a goat man because he was a goat farmer, and then killed all the people that lynched him and his people, and then came back and terrorized Fort Worth ever since.
That's a real story.
It's a real story. Look up Fort Worth Goat Man. I'm
gonna look that
serious.
story up.
It's for real. It's cool.
Yeah, people said they've seen him.
Yeah.
Okay.
For real. It started in Denton. Look up Goatman's Bridge, and it'll tell you all about the legend and stuff.
I'm gonna look up that story.
For sure.
Thank you.
No problem. Y'all have a good day.
I hope they believe us. It's real.
What's cool about what we're doing out here, we're not just trying to catch the Goatman or prove the Goatman, we're spreading the knowledge and the lore of the Goatman to people who didn't know. Like, so it starts off as a non-knower, and then you become a non-believer, because that sounds a little corny. Then you come out here and you talk to people like Meg, 100% on board.
Yeah, shout out to Meg.
Shout out to Meg.
Meg really helped us out a lot.
Meg is my egg. Meg is my
I think
egg.
they've heard of the goat man. probably. I heard of the goat man.
Don't speak English. We have Edric.
What are you saying?
They could not speak English.
What else would they speak?
Spanish?
What if it's not Spanish? Alright, well, we didn't see the goat man yet.
I believe in
I mean,
it.
I kind of believe.
So apparently these kids are sitting here trying to prank our video and make fun of it.
No, we're not.
They don't believe in
They
the
don't
goat
believe
man.
in the
believe
goat
in it.
man.
You
Back
believe
in my day, if my older brother, I didn't have one, but if he took me on a goat man expedition, I'd be stoked. These kids,
There's a
I
fish
believe
They
in
don't
it,
believe
though.
it. I'm gonna go take a piss.
okay.
Did you just fart?
I did.
Dude, what
Really?
I'm sorry. It just kind of came out of me. I'm sorry.
That's fucked up.
I'm sorry. It's gone.
Oh my god, they're getting married and we just
Interrupted that.
Are they really getting married?
Getting married again.
Hey, zoom the camera. I hope they believe us. It's real.
You said you want fajitas?
No, I said I hope they believe us.
Alright guys, well I hope you all had fun watching that one. It was pretty funny to look back on that footage and just to enjoy that day with my brothers and my friend and my fiance. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another video. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't already, and I'll see y'all then. Thanks again for watching.